Welcome to the Growth Stack. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create a static website and you can host it very cheaply on a cloud platform, which is always available for you. Um, I mean, we can use this static website for different use cases. Let's say if you want to build a blog or probably a marketing website just for your product, or probably something that some static content that you want to host online, uh, and there are a bunch of use cases along with this, like if you want to host your personal branding website, right? Um, so all these use cases doesn't actually require a huge ton of server-side coding, um, where basically the website is more or less dynamic, right? But in static websites, there is very, I mean, basically there is no server-side code as such. Like all the pages are more or less static, and it only contains HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So without further ado, let's dive deep into how we can create a static website and host it very cheaply on a cloud platform, basically. So to show you some examples, let me show you some of the sites which were hosted uh, using this particular thing, Amazon CTO, right? So Vernal Vocals. So the entire content that you're seeing on this particular site is actually hosted via the same method that we're going to discuss in this particular video. So as you can see, it's all this particular use case is a blog, but you can use the same thing for any static site that you want to host, basically. Yeah, so let's dive deep into the things. So to start off, we should be creating a static website. So you can create a static website all by yourself if you are a programmer, but if you're not a programmer, you should be going to some static site generators, right? So if you have, there's a bunch of static site generators, open source static site generators like Jekyll, Hugo, Gatsby, and a bunch of others. So basically, I'll add these links to the description. You can check it, but my recommendations would be to use Jekyll or Hugo for minimalistic purposes, and these are extremely configurable in the sense that there's a bunch of documentation available for you to configure or understand how things work out in this thing. And yeah, and wherever you are stuck, right, so you'll have a lot of help through this documentation, and you can just there are a bunch of community themes that are also available for this particular thing. So you can create a site with a bunch of commands. It will basically create some piece of code for you. Basically it's a boilerplate, and I'll show you what the repository contains, right? So if you go to that, the bunch of markdown content that is available, as well as a gem file. There's a 404 page. There's a config.yml, this is where you more or less customize your site, and the pre-built site is actually pushed into a folder called _site, and all your posts that you are trying to create will come under _posts. This is a very minimalistic explanation to how things work out with Jekyll, right? So so there are other static site generators as well. Hugo is one such, and I'll show you how the generated site looks like from Jekyll, right? So this is a site which is generated entirely from boilerplate that we saw here, right? So this is the site, and you can see that there's a single post, welcome to Jekyll, and a bunch of links, and there's a yes, title, mailer. So you can actually configure then this entire thing from the config.yml file basically. And so if we, as you can see that this is a post content which is basically written written using a format called Markdown basically. It's very easy to learn and it's very minimalistic. It will help you create pages like this, right? So what's the next step? So you have a static site, you have a build, which you have it in underscore site folder. Now what we do? So basically, once you have your uh, static site ready, it's time to create an AWS account if you don't have one already. So uh, AWS actually provides 1 year free trial, so you can use most of the services for you can trial most of the services for free for a 1 year period of time, and once the period expires you can extend it by paying for the usage that you do. But I would say for this purpose we won't have any significant monthly bills for hosting this particular static website. It hardly amounts to $2 a month. Primarily, the cost comes from Route 53 and CloudFront, and a dirt cheap S3 storage, right? Um, so once you have AWS account ready, the next thing that you want to do is go to this link, which I'll be sharing in the description. Basically, this is a documentation which helps you understand how you can host an S3 website. So I'll walk you through a bunch of steps, basically to give you a high level overview. But to get into the details, you can just come to this particular link and go to the entire documentation. The reason I'm asking you to do this is basically there are a bunch of things that you should figure out before you come online. Uh, so it's very much recommended that you go through the documentation. It's hardly 4 to 5 pages. Um, so now let's jump into the details. Like every S3 website that you create, right? So every S3 website more or less is served from a URL something like this. Basically, for a specific bucket, you have to be just replacing its bucket name and a region in which it is hosted. For Mumbai, it is AP South 1. For US, it's US East 1, US West 1, sort of thing. And so these URLs will be required later on for pointing your domain to this S3 website that you're trying to create. So so this is something that you have to note. And now once you have this thing ready, basically all your documents under your site, right, so this static content that you see here will be under the root directory. Basically there is an about page under which we have index.html. There are a bunch of assets and the index.html file which is in the root of the websites directory. So once you have the site ready in an S3 bucket, you can actually create a DNS record which actually points your domain to this particular URL or to render your site, something like this basically, right? So this is some high level overview of what we're going to cover. Let's dive into how we'll create one such website. So next thing that we want to do is go to S3 console, and basically you have to create a S3 bucket. And this S3 bucket, you have to use this bunch of options that basically tells AWS that you're trying to create a static website inside a S3 bucket, right? So follow this guide. Basically, you should be creating a S3 bucket and basically tell it where your homepage is, in which case which is index.html. And if you are going via the Jekyll route, you will have your homepage rendered something like this, which is again index.html. That's to it. Basically, you create a website. You create a S3 bucket, and gives the next thing that we want to do is configuring the index document, right? So we've already said that the home page is your index.html file, right? So how do this bucket know that this is your index file? So that's where this thing comes in. Basically, you're configuring the index document. So you created an index document, save the file locally, and tell the bucket that your index.file resides at this particular point, basically. And once you have your index.html file configured, you could also create some error pages, probably something like a 404 page or a 500 page. 404s are something that basically if a particular URL is not there in your hosting, you basically throw an error saying key this particular URL is not available. Yeah, and coming to the S3 bucket, right? So the bucket that you're creating should be something like this. www. The site name, right? So something like example is your domain, let's say. So this should be your S3 bucket name as well, and you have to make this content, the entire bucket content, public if you want to host it as a site. But if you are sensitive to buckets direct access to the public, what you can do is basically use a CloudFront in front of S3, which basically accesses the content in your S3 bucket via some access control rules, right? And so essentially your content is not directly available, and nobody it's directly available, but nobody can try to get into your bucket without specific permissions, right? So it's an added security feature. Along with it, you will also be able to host the site using HTTPS, which is a general standard these days. Basically, every site that we create more or less has HTTPS, which is a secure form of serving a website, basically.